are live in effect. It's the Great Out Podcast. I'm Jay the Gray here with you, and tonight we've got a hot topic. I would say a barn burner, perhaps, maybe not. Again, a little dramatic. Sorry, but here we are, Great Out Podcast, episode 3. We are diving into what I call the strange case of Ahmaud Arbery, and you might even begin to first thing out of your brain is why are you calling it strange? And we're going to discuss that, and by the end of this, I hope you understand why I think this is so strange. The whole thing, it's been odd to watch. So let's just kind of start in. The Ahmaud Arbery case has been going on now. It's been in the national spotlight for a while, and it is probably one of the most controversial non-controversies I've ever experienced in my adult life. Right? This is something that I step back and I've been watching this and I'm like, how is this even becoming a thing? And there are so many voices weighing in, and there's all this stuff going on, and people are asking what I really seem to me to be clearly wrong-headed questions, and it's just this is a tragedy that this happened. And I've been wanting to kind of talk about it. I've been kind of biding my time. I almost wanted to just open with it and just go right in, because it's a matter to me of national importance in a larger conversation that's important, that really does have dividing ties. And unfortunately, this has become kind of a semi-partisan issue. It's actually even caused division inside of the conservative ranks, because you have people on either side of that, and it's bizarre to watch, because here's the deal, okay? There is, in the midst of all the voices, there are all these things that are just out there floating around. And here's what, for the most part, I want to be clear as to what I've heard so far. I've never heard anyone say, just make sure we're clear, 0 persons have said that he deserved it, had it coming, at least to my knowledge. Now, maybe you've heard something or you've seen something, and I'm going to say to you right now, you probably need to dump that opinion out of your life. If you got someone out there who you've heard say he clearly deserved it, that's a crazy person talking. You probably don't need to listen to them anymore. So I'm just going to throw that out there for you. I'm being a little judgy, I know, but that's it's not my job. I have a job. This is just my hobby for right now. And so I'm just saying that's not an opinion you need more of in your head. That's a dumb opinion. He did not, right? So I'm just going to start out by saying flat out, I really do believe there is a level of an acceptable level of absolutely righteous outrage surrounding this. I think it's correct outrage. I think there are pieces of this that, that need to be dealt with, that it needs to come out, needs to be talked about. And here's the deal. I want to talk about a little bit of both sides, and I don't understand why there are sides, because to me this is largely a human issue. But we're going to dive in anyways. Now, if you're sitting there on the other side of this and you're saying, who's Ahmaud Arbery? I don't know if you've had your head, and maybe you're consumed with the COVID, which is, I get the COVID's a big thing, and we're going to be talking about that in a couple more episodes coming up. But this is one of those things that, to me, is super important, because it's going on. So, Ahmaud Arbery, if you've been under a rock or not paying attention, this is kind of a big national issue. It hit the stage probably 4 weeks ago, maybe tops, and it's just kind of been ongoing and rolling, and it's it's kind of a big issue. So February 23rd, let's recap. February 23rd of this year, February 23rd, in Brunswick, Georgia, a young man named Ahmaud Arbery was jogging, or was said to be jogging through a neighborhood called Satilla Shores. In that time frame, he was contacted by 2 gentlemen, 2 fellas named Gregory and Travis McMichael. They approached him, and all of this kind of went around. And I'm very simplifying, just because we're going to dive into this detail by detail. And this interaction between Ahmaud Arbery and the McMichaels ended up with Mr. Arbery being killed. And this is a tragedy. This is a tragedy, and it's an angering tragedy. And I really this is one of those things that, gosh dang it, someone needs to say something, and people are speaking out, and then they're being told to be quiet. And if you're conservative, then why are you believing the media hype? And can we just step back for a second? Let's just look at this from the timeline perspective. So February 23rd, Ahmaud Arbery goes into the Satilla Shores neighborhood. Now, the report is he's jogging. At this point, there is, like, seriously, and I've heard all kinds of crazy stuff about this. Oh, he was wearing boots. He was wearing cargo shorts. Yet they show a video that shows him going into the house minutes before he's confronted, 5 minutes, 10 minutes before he's confronted with McMichaels, probably 15 minutes before he is dead. He's in a video in this house that's under construction, open, 0 doors on the house. We get this? 0 doors. There you go. That many doors. That many. For those of you like who are European, there's that many doors in the house. He walks into an open construction site, looks around. A neighbor yells out, calls 911, and he comes out of the house and he continues on his way. Now, running, walking, none of that matters. And here's where I think everyone goes wrong. This is the first detour that everyone seems to want to take, and I don't understand why. People ask, well, why was he in the neighborhood? Seriously? So that's the question. Why was he in the neighborhood? Maybe I'm mistaken, but in my neighborhood where I live, people that don't live in my neighborhood run through my neighborhood all the time. People drive through my neighborhood to get from one side of one street to the other side. Like, people come through here all the time. Joggers, runners, walkers, people going to the park. It happens. Do you seriously live in a place where no one outside of your neighborhood comes through your neighborhood? And if you do, congrats, I guess. I don't know. Maybe how sad for you? I'm not sure. Would it really bother you if they did? But this question of why was he in the neighborhood is just dumb. It doesn't matter why he was in the neighborhood. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all that he was in that neighborhood. It's a free country. Public roads are still public roads, and you can go in a neighborhood if you want to. Now, were there issues in the neighborhood? Did this lead to this weird interaction? Yep. But he didn't know that. And so really, this question is absolutely a moot point, because let's be very honest. Other than walking into that construction house, that house under construction with, again, 0 doors on it, that man had done nothing wrong at that point. He had not committed a crime. Like even when they call the cops, right? The neighbor calls the cops when he's in the building. The neighbor, not the McMichaels, another neighbor calls the cops, calls 911 and says, hey, there's a guy in this house across the street, and he's over there. And even the cop is on the phone. The guy's on 911, and she goes, I kind of need to know whatever he's doing wrong. What's he doing wrong? And she asked this totally incredulous. She's like, so he's in a house with no doors, or it's open construction house, and he's in there, and you don't like it? Okay, tell him to shoo, I guess. Tell him to move along. Tell him he shouldn't be there. And clearly, when either, I don't know. Again, this is in conjecture. I don't want to get into that. Whatever it is, Ahmaud Arbery leaves the house under construction, continues running down the street. Off he goes, and this is where his interaction with the McMichaels begins. But here's the thing. At that point, right, he had still committed no serious crime. He had not gone into that neighborhood. He had not committed a crime. He hadn't verbally abused anybody. He hadn't threatened anybody. Hell, he hadn't even looked cross-eyed at the neighborhood favorite cat. He was just in the neighborhood, and as far as anyone, it's not up to anybody to determine who can be in their neighborhood or not, unless you live in a gated community with a security guard, and that's his job. And even then, people may have business with your neighbors. You don't know. You can't just jump to conclusions, jump to assumptions, and be that kind of person. That's just weird. So anyways, he leaves, and he runs down the street. Now here's what this has sparked, this discussion. This is crazy phenomena. This is the phenomena of worldwide, well, maybe not worldwide, I guess. The phenomena of national confession of your trespassing day. Because literally, and I've seen a couple people, there are a couple sites I like, and I've watched opinions of people like talking about facts. But I've seen some people I've never gone on a construction site. And I'm like, man, you had a sucky childhood then, I guess. You've never gone to, because I remember as a kid, the behind my neighborhood was a big field, and then one day they just bulldozed the whole thing and they started getting ready for construction. And over the next few years, from the time I was in sixth grade, maybe fifth grade. Yeah, probably like fifth grade, all the way through to like, I'm going to say maybe freshman year of high school, sophomore year of high school. They were like building houses, condos back there. And we went back there all the time. Like we went back there all the time. On the weekends, we go back and walk through the houses, walk through the construction site. When there were no houses built, we would ride our bikes off the side, the stair step berms. We jump our bikes down them. And no one ever yelled at us. No one screamed at us. And certainly no one ever chased us with guns. God, like come on. And people that are admitting this, and people are like, I'm shocked that everyone's admitting to their trespassing. Because it's normal. Curiosity leads you into these places. So people go look at construction sites. It's a normal, natural thing to do. Curiosity takes you in there. You look around for a while. Wow, this is going to be interesting. I wonder what it's going to look like when it's built. Plus, in the middle of this, they've shown videos of other people walking in the house that aren't the owner, aren't on the construction, like just walking in and looking around going, wow, this is going to be a nice house. I wonder what it's going to look like when it's done. It's normal stuff. It's totally natural. The fact that this is even an issue, again, befuddled, full of fuddled, like overcome with fuddled. I'm befuddled by it. Like why it's even an issue. Because it's not. So at this point, here's where the interaction with the McMichaels begins. Gregory McMichael, the elder, right, the father, sees Ahmaud Arbery running by, and he starts yelling, calls 911, says, there's a guy in my neighborhood, and he's like, I'm going to go after him. And what he does, he runs in, gets his adult son. Now, these men are 64 and 34 years, respectively. Gregory McMichael's 64 years old. Travis McMichael's 34 years old. Here's what that means. They're old enough to know better. They're old enough to know better. They are old enough to know this is not something we should be engaging in. There's no way my dad runs in, and I love my dad, and my dad, he's a great dude. But if my dad, whom I respect, I respect my dad, he's a great dude, but if he ran in the door and said, and I would expect this of my sons, if I ran in the door and said, there's a dude running through the neighborhood, I'm not sure he did anything, but I think he looks like someone who possibly could have done something before weeks ago, but we're going to go after him. Get a gun. I would expect my sons to look at me and go, Dad, you sound like a crazy person right now. Call the cops, right? Tell them he's in the neighborhood. Let the cops deal with it. But no. And this is where I think, this is why the outrage is like, and let me just, okay, I don't want to get too far. Okay, so stay with me here. The McMichaels arm themselves. Gregory McMichael with I believe it's a 357. I have to look at the 357 Magnum pistol, revolver. And Travis McMichael with a shotgun. They get in their pickup and they begin to pursue Ahmaud Arbery around their neighborhood, and they try to cut him off. Per the police report, multiple times. They try to stop him, talk to him. Now, for some of you, I've been to Georgia. Now, I'm a native Californian, and in California, right, I was born and raised in the East Bay Area, in San Francisco Bay Area, and I come from a multicultural background. I come from a multicultural home. My stepdad is Filipino. I come from this sort of great experience in the Bay Area of being around lots of people of lots of different influences, lots of cultures, races. It's awesome. I'm gonna be very honest, it's awesome. But when I joined the Army and I did training in Georgia, it's definitely different. It's different. It feels different there. It seems different there. It's a little tense, right? And when you meet people from these communities that are people of color, you start to understand the way that they feel. Now, I can never fully comprehend, never. And the minute you say, as I believe a Caucasian person, right, that you fully comprehend, you don't fully comprehend. That's when you just need to kind of step back. But this whole interaction just seems bizarre. And when you're confronted, no, let's just erase, for the sake of argument, all all race from this. Just take it out of the equation for just a second, right? These people are all gray. Hell, they're plaid. How about that? They're all plaid. They're plaid people. And they're all the exact same version of plaid, right? And two plaid people get in a car with guns and start chasing a third plaid person around the neighborhood with their guns for doing nothing. And they're trying to confront him and they're trying to stop him. And for some reason, the third plaid person doesn't want to comply because two strange plaid people are chasing him with guns. Once you put it that way, it does not seem so far-fetched that he would want to avoid them, but then when finally confronted, felt like, I have got no choice but to either fight or these other people are going to harm me, period. Because when you want to talk with somebody, and you seriously just want to talk with them, you don't open the conversation with weapons, right? I've learned all my life from the time I was a young boy, you don't pick up a gun you don't intend to use, period. Whether it be hunting, target shooting, or for protection, you don't pick up that gun unless you intend to pull the trigger. This is a simple fact. So, right, these guys get in the truck with guns, chase other person down, and confront him with guns. And what did they expect? Compliance? Based on what? So they arm themselves, they chase him down, they confront him, they try to cut him off 3 separate times. They've enlisted a third person who's driving a separate car, identified as Roddy, whom we later would find out is the same dude that uploaded the video that kind of like sparked the whole national picture and outrage, who's now been arrested as of today. So it's all back in the news again, which is really funny to me because I was like, well, why didn't that guy get like talked to initially when he's in the police report? In the police report, they identify this third person named Roddy, identified as Roddy, helped them try to cut Ahmaud Arbery off in the neighborhood. And then got the film of the confrontation that led to Mr. Arbery's death. And so here we are. This situation is unfolding, and yet people keep asking the wrong questions. And here's what I want to know. Why did these guys think it was okay to arm themselves? Why did they think that option was the best initial option? I'm going to grab guns and go after this young black man who's running through my neighborhood because I think he may resemble someone who did something a couple weeks ago? Okay, that's not cool. You just can't, you can't just arbitrarily think someone looks like someone else when it comes out later, especially that Larry English, who's the owner of the home under construction, said emphatically, I never showed the McMichaels the videos. Now, maybe Mr. English said there were people in the house. Maybe he said there were black people in the house. Who knows? All I'm saying is he emphatically said and made a statement through his lawyer and to the press, I never showed the McMichaels the videos of people in my house. So, how did you know what he looked like? You just assumed? I don't know. But even if all of that is the case, the fact that these men thought it was okay, a reasonable response to this situation was to arm themselves, jump in a truck, and chase this person down is just bizarre. It's just bizarre. Like I said, Ahmaud Arbery was not in the neighborhood threatening people, yelling at people, being verbally abusive or assaulting people. I guess wasn't kicking cats, throwing rocks, or doing anything. He walked into a house under construction with no doors on it, walked out, left. These guys follow him. And then, of course, right, as always, both sides do the things that both sides are going to do. Right? The fringes of both sides do the things that both sides are going to do. Right, on the one hand, you have them exposing Gregory McMichael as a failed police officer and an investigator for the district attorney who lost his badge, lost his gun, was serving in a non-law enforcement, semi-investigatory role inside the DA's office. And then, of course, you have all of the things that have come out about Ahmaud Arbery in his past. And I'm like, none of that matters. On either side, none of it matters. None of those things matter in this situation. And people can't seem to see past that. As though for some reason, Ahmaud Arbery having a troubled past, having made mistakes, poor decisions, and had consequences for those, that means automatically he's up to no good and deserves to be shot? Are you kidding me? Or again, there's no way that the McMichaels can assign motive to this young man that would lead them to make this in any way in my mind. Can you make the leap from this dude's in the neighborhood to guns, chase him? Then they try to make the excuse or the assertion that, well, we weren't sure if he was armed. And even that just makes me, I'm like, probably what makes me more mad is that it seems like, it looks like, and, when it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, swims like a duck, probably a duck, it looks like when they told the Glenn County Police this, they were like, oh, makes sense to us. Y'all go on your day. What? So you thought he was armed, and you thought the best response to an armed person in your neighborhood not bothering you, but running by, you weren't sure he was armed. You had no indication that he was or wasn't. You just were like, well, maybe he is. Because why? Right? Oh, that's right. Because Travis had 2 weeks prior to this, had seen someone in the house, another person or the same person. Who knows? No one knows at this point if that was the same or not. But, he kind of put his hand in his waistband, in his pocket, in his left pocket. I'm like, well, so maybe his phone was in there? Who knows? I don't know if he's got a gun or not. Y'all should know that. That's the assumption. If someone puts their hand in their pocket, they've automatically got a gun. Okay. Well, let's just flesh this out for 2 seconds. If someone was in there and they were looking to steal something out of that, I don't think they're going to carry a gun in there to try and sneak out with a tool or some copper wiring or something else. I don't think that's going to happen. Just on its face. You're not going in to quick snatch a couple of small items out of a construction site heavily armed. This is not that I'm aware of. I don't know. Again, I don't want to get too much into that because that's conjecture. It doesn't help us. But at the same time, because of an incident, not even a confrontation, but an incident 2 weeks prior, that's their excuse to say, we're not sure if this guy was armed. And the police did not bother to say, so why on earth would you get guns and go after someone you were concerned was armed? That's why they pay us, the police, to deal with people who may be armed or not armed. That's our job. We get paid to do that. We get paid to face that danger. You're a citizen, and yes, you have the right to bear arms, and yes, it's an open carry state, but you have an obligation as a gun owner to be responsible with your firearms. You have an obligation to that, period. So, that's where we are with that. So these guys felt, and I still can't quite figure out why they felt it was justified to take the actions that they did. Why didn't they just call the police, tell them he was in the neighborhood, give them here's the updates, here's which direction he went, here's what he was wearing. Clearly, they saw him clearly. Here's what he was wearing. And he's going down this way. If you guys can follow up, he's in the neighborhood right now. We're concerned. Our neighbor said there's been some trespassing. We're not sure if things were missing, but we did have a break. Whatever. That's responsible citizenry right there. That's your job. That's your obligation. This nonsense about trying to affect a citizen's arrest, when you look at, and here's the thing, you can go look, Colin Noir, his channel over on YouTube, Colin Noir, he's a Second Amendment's right advocate and lawyer. I'm not sure if he's an active lawyer, but he went to law school. But anyways, he's got a great channel. He went over this and kind of talked about how it plays out according to the law. And literally, they're attempt to justify their actions by saying we are trying to effect a citizen's arrest don't meet muster. Yet the DA of Waycross, next town over, said, well, they're trying to effect a citizen's arrest. It's an open carry state, open and shut case. We really can't do anything about it. It's crazy. It's crazy that a person could, with a straight, look. I mean, when I looked at all this 3 weeks ago, and I'm started reading all this stuff, and I'm looking at these, I looked at the statute. Because the New York Times, despite normally they have they actually went in and laid all this stuff out. They have the site on the New York Times. If you look up Ahmaud Arbery, New York Times, they've got it laid out, timeline. Here's what we know. Here's the things, documents. It's all there. It's all there. Police report included, which is why I immediately knew something was way off with this. These guys were and people were when the video came out, well, clearly he's running at the truck and then he dies. I'm that's not the first time they tried to stop him. That's the final time they tried to stop him. Out of multiple times they tried to stop him, and it ended with a man dead. And the men that killed him just went home, put their guns back in their house, and went about their business. And it's outrageous. And then people go, well, why is it a national thing? Why is it such an outrage? Here's why. And here's why now. Now we're to the place where here's why it's strange. Why are people asking why other people are outraged? It is outrageous that these men felt that they could do this when they had none, zero, no reasons to do what they did. They had no reason to take the action they did. None. They had no reasonable cause. They had no nothing to take up arms and chase down another human being, period. And that's outrageous, and that should outrage us. What makes it worse, right? Worse. And here's the thing. I've seen it out there. I've seen people ask me, what about outrage about this case and about that case and about this guy? There was a gentleman in Fresno in 2017, and this case came up specifically on Twitter. And I was like, well, this gentleman in Fresno, African-American gentleman, and I had the case up. I closed it down. I'll post it in the links below in either the podcast details or I'll post it under the video on YouTube. This gentleman in Fresno went out and he shot people because he was looking to kill white men. And he was an African-American gentleman. And an African-American person on Twitter, gentleman I follow on Twitter, he put out the question, why isn't everybody outraged about this? Because that man did that and then surrendered to police and was prosecuted immediately. Admitted the crime. The justice system worked the way it was supposed to. He committed the crime, admitted to the crime, has been prosecuted. Now they're trying to figure out if the guy's even sane. But he did what he did. He admitted to what he did. The cops arrested him and put him away, and he's not seen the light of day since. It's outrageous, and people are outraged, and rightfully so. I'm just going to be honest, rightfully so. Because these two men did this, and after the crime was committed, it took over 2 months. 2 months, over 2 months for people to take notice, and it wasn't until the video came out and it started spreading around that these two men had murdered a young man in Georgia, and no one had raised a finger to do anything about it. And that should outrage anyone. It does. I'm like, seriously, that they just got it written off as trying to effect citizen's arrest. Dude tried to wrestle the gun away from him. Self-defense. Case closed. That simple. What? Seriously, what? When I read that, I literally I was beside myself with anger. And I don't try to get outraged about much. But there's a point at which the middle needs to go, hey, you fringe people need to stop, because this is not a right or left issue. This is a human issue, period. And yes, there are people that will take it to extremes and they will try to use it to benefit them. That happens on both sides, and that's wrong. Can we assign immediately, without question, racism into this? That I don't know. And I can't speak to that. But I'm going to tell you what, from the people of color that I know and the way that they are made to feel, it's hard not to. And if you can't understand, like this is the thing, if you can't understand that, then you're looking at it from the wrong perspective. When you just look at it on its face and you go, what on earth is going on? I totally understand why it would feel that way immediately. And if you can't at least admit that, then you're just being intellectually dishonest, period. I'm making some very emphatic statements in this episode, and I'm not going to apologize for it. And if it turns you off to the rest of the podcast, I guess I'm not here normally to make these emphatic, but like here in the middle of this issue is just where I'm like, it's sanity. And people on the one side are, well, you got to wait for the facts. What are the facts? Are two dudes picked up guns, chased down another man, and shot him. They put him in a position where it was either fight or flight, and he chose to fight, and it cost him his life. And if they had never picked up their guns and never gotten in the car, it would have never happened. And you could go, well, if he was never in the neighborhood, he has a right to be in the neighborhood. They don't have a right to pick up guns and take up arms against one young man running through the neighborhood, no matter what they think he did. That's not a guaranteed right in the Constitution. Right? The Second Amendment doesn't guarantee the right to just chase down some rando you see in your neighborhood because you think you might be up to no good. The Second Amendment gives you the right to defend yourself, defend your life, right? Defend your property, take up arms against tyrannous government. That's what it's there for. And I'm a firm believer in the Second Amendment and its rights. I really am. And again, other episodes we can get into that. But this is not a case of responsible gun ownership and Second Amendment rights being exercised. This is two dudes who thought because they owned guns they could get them and chase down another person. And it's not okay. It's just not okay. And I get it. You're like, why aren't you supposed to be more like middle political? This is like barely a political issue. It shouldn't be. And the fact that it is a political issue makes me mad. The fact that there are conservative people out there questioning conservative people and left-leaning people questioning conservative people and conservative people questioning left-leaning people about all of this, like, and they're worried about race hustlers and race baiting. Like, dude, none of it matters. The fact is this was an injustice. It's a tragedy. And these men went free unquestioned for 2 months. That should upset anybody. That's enough to upset anybody. And the weak sauce letter from the Waycross DA, I believe it's George Barnhill, that was just crap. That as a legal opinion was just. Now I'm not a lawyer, but I've seen it. I've listened to a couple other opinions, and I just in reading it, it just feels gross. It's just crap. It is the weakest legal opinion ever, and it will not hold up in court. In fact, I think they're going to investigate him, if I'm not mistaken. If I look at the Georgia Board of Investigation or Department of the GDI, they're going to get into his business and be like, why didn't you? This is like clearly there's something wrong here. This has just been shuffled around for 2 months. And people are like, well, if you arrest them, that doesn't, it doesn't work that way. Don't let the cop shows fool you. You can arrest someone for something, and if you don't have enough to hold them on a charge, you can let them go, but you can still arrest them again later and charge them for the crime, right? Because just because you don't have enough for an indictment after that initial time, it's not dismissed with prejudice, right? That's not the same thing. You can go back, once you find evidence, you can go back and arrest somebody. But the fact, and that's the thing that people are so angry about. There's no, like literally, this was just kind of passed over, like, nah, no big deal. And that, to me, that's outrageous. 2 months went by. And then still, even after 2 months, it took like 2 weeks of people screaming about it, tweeting about it, going on YouTube about it, news talking about it, everyone's talking about it. And finally, the state of Georgia was like, we pretty much got to step in or someone may burn the freaking state down. And so they did. And still people are tweeting about this, going back and forth about, wait for the facts. And we still got to let this play out. Here's my concern. I'm gonna close with this. So if you're done, then okay, be done. But here's where I'm at. I'm concerned that they're gonna go in on these guys too hard. They're gonna go in on these guys too hard. Not that I don't believe they should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law that they can actually prosecute them on. It's an indictable offense. It's very clear that they're responsible for this young man's death. Whether you can argue that he attacked them and grabbed the gun and that caused it, like if they had never gotten their guns and gotten in the car, we wouldn't be having this discussion. It would be a non-issue. It would have never happened. And they have to be held responsible for that. There has to be consequences for that because they were irresponsible as gun owners. There's a consequence for that, period. You don't have that. You don't get to exercise a right that you're not guaranteed. Right? You don't get to just go in on somebody with guns and be like, we're going to chase this guy down. We're going to exercise. And the fact that you're ex-law enforcement does not give you the right to do that. And the fact that the police, and some I watched, man, this is one of those things that I literally watched one other commentator say, well, it looks like the police enlisted the help of the McMichaels. No, the police text the owner of the home, Larry English, that said, a few doors down from you, your neighbor, Travis McMichaels, his dad was former law enforcement. You should talk to him. They never enlisted the help of the McMichaels. They never went to them directly and said, hey, we need you guys to look out, be investigators in the neighborhood, watch your neighborhood. We need to take care of this case for us. We're just going to hand it off to you, the Citizen Patrol of Satilla Shores. Didn't happen. But here's the thing. I think they're going to try and go in too hard on these guys. And here's the problem. If they try to charge them with like first degree murder, or they really try to go in on these guys as hard as possible to get the biggest possible sentence, these guys are going to walk. Because I don't believe the evidence will support such a heavy-handed charge. So the question is, are you willing to accept justice in whatever form it comes, or are you going to try and charge these men with a charge that the evidence probably can't bear out and they're going to walk free? Like the question is that, like literally, are you going to let justice be justice for whatever comes, right? Or are you going to try and press so hard, right, that it like literally like grabbing sand, it's going to just run out of your fingers? This brings me like the only analogy I can come up to this. Like last year, I was on a business trip and I got into Lyft. I had a Lyft driver taking me from my hotel to dinner, and he was Nigerian, and he was a great guy. He'd come to the States. He was making his way. He's going to school, and I asked him about driving for Lyft. We were just talking. I was like, "So you enjoy driving?" And this is what he said to me: "It's not the greatest job, but half bread is better than no bread." That was the whole thing. Half bread is better than no bread. And I think if you think about that and you let that sink in, and again, this may never reach anybody that matters, but I just feel like it's in an effort to get something that will make us all feel good, like, oh, we got him. Nothing will happen. And is that what you really want? And you have to ask yourself that question. And whoever you are, I guess, I'm sorry, that's the question that has to be asked. I just feel like, are they going to go in too hard on the guy? So I'm getting up near 40 minutes and probably boring the heck out of everybody, but that's where I feel like this case is so strange. It's become this weird divided issue, and this is a human issue that we need to address, and we need to be united on. Like, you just can't, in the United States, for some reason, get guns, chase someone else down who's also, right, another human being. You just can't do that and end up with them dead and get away with it for 2 months without anyone saying boo. Like, it seems totally normal to me. Like, you just can't. Like, it's crazy. That's so bizarre. And what's even more bizarre is that as people found out about it and were like, what? And got outraged, people were like, why are you so outraged about that? You're just a bunch of, it's race hustling. It's this. You need to wait for the facts. Like, the facts done been out for 2 months and clearly no one picked them up and ran with them. So, let's hope and pray. Right? First, let's for that young man's family, his community. I'd even go as far as to let's pray for the McMichaels and their family. Like that's I don't care who you are, right? And I don't know that they intended to take that young man's life when they went out there. That's the one thing you can't just say they did. Now, it seems like they had intent to use those weapons. That's why you pick them up. And again, that's hard. That's like hard. That's a place of tension even in my own mind and heart. Like you can't say they intended to murder somebody, but man, they picked up guns and got in a car and followed him and chased him down. So that seems weird. But their actions cost someone's life, and that's a hard thing to carry. So I would say pray for them and pray for justice, like actual justice. That it's meted out, and our system is what it does, what it's supposed to do. And then again, like I always say, as we end every week, let's be better. And when I say that, what I mean is let's be better to one another, better humans. Let's treat one another with compassion. Let's treat one another with a little bit of grace. Let's look for the best. Let's be better. I got the beard. My beard company has a shirt that says "Do Better," and I love it. It's just do better, like be better every day. Like just be better. So that said, thanks you guys for listening. As long as you may have listened or for shutting it down. If this makes sense, I'd love for you to hit the subscribe button. I'm going to be, in and out giving you opinions. Again, I try to give opinions for the politically homeless, the political nomads, politics, events, current situations, societal issues, all those things kind of coming out of my mind. So that keeps whatever gets poured in, I'm just pouring out. So hit the subscribe button, notifications if you want to know when I'm posting. Again, we're here on YouTube. We're on the Apple Podcast, Spotify Podcast. I'm kind of just a little bit everywhere. So thanks for listening. Again, be better. Thanks, y'all.